Hey sweet friends, welcome back here to my kitchen at Seed and Sparrow Homestead. I'm Kelsey, and today we are going to work on restocking my kitchen. I am going to be prepping some things for the week, some food for us, just to make things a bit easier on me. I have a lot of things I'd like to get to this week. I have one child who is not feeling the greatest, and this is going to help me out a ton to have some things prepped and ready to go. It's been a little while since I have done this for myself. I do it pretty consistently in the cooler months, but during those hectic summer months for me, it just doesn't always happen. But that busy time is gradually here coming to a close, so I'm going to start doing this a bit more for myself. We start school here in the next week, and this will definitely help. It will free up a lot of my time so that I can focus on this new routine and schedule adjustment once again. I'm mainly focusing on breakfast for us all, some snacks, and some lunch for myself. I have some sweet potatoes here going into the oven to roast. That'll be part of my breakfast. And now I'm going to get started on some loaves of bread for the week. For sandwiches and toast, my kids are toastaholics, and to have with meals here and there. Bread is also something that gets pushed to the side during the summer months. I have just been buying Dave's Killer Bread at the store pretty much all summer long, but as my attention turns indoors instead of outdoors, I am already feeling such a desire to be baking all of the things, so homemade bread becomes more of a weekly thing again. As always, you can find all of today's recipes down in the description, written out for you. I have made this recipe with you many times, this bread recipe, which we love. I have a whole video on making all of my bread products for the month in one day. I have a few other ones where we made different types of bread, so I'll link them in the description too if you're interested in some more in-depth tutorials. I have really missed making bread and baking in general. I am looking forward to a bit of a slower season in the kitchen, not one where I am just constantly canning and preserving things. As soon as we get that taste of cooler weather, which we had the last week, we had low 70s. Like, we'd wake up in the morning and you would need a sweatshirt, and it was glorious. I loved it so much. This week we're back to 90s. It was such a tease, but after this week it goes back to those beautiful fall temps. Fall is almost upon us, and I'm really looking forward to just that cozy sweater weather, sipping some tea, snuggled up under a blanket, the crisp fall air, leaves changing all the beautiful colors, fall foods and baking. I'm not wishing away summer or wanting it to just rush by, because time just goes so quickly. I think every year it goes a bit faster, and I wonder how my kids have grown as much as they have. I am savoring it, but I am dreaming of all the things I love about fall. My main purpose for this bread this week is for sandwiches. So I am going to be putting this into a Pullman pan, and for that you need a certain amount of dough, about 1,100 grams. This recipe is for 2 traditional loaves, so when I put it in the Pullman pan, I don't have quite enough left over for a traditional loaf pan. I do have these 2 tiny little loaf pans I got from Home Goods that are super cute, but the amount of dough left over after filling this Pullman pan is the perfect amount to fill these 2 small loaf pans, and it makes just the right size to have with a meal. To go along with breakfast or for an afternoon snack, I'm making some blueberry muffins this week. These are a healthier version of blueberry muffins. I'm not using any refined sugar in these. I'm using honey to sweeten them. And what you see here is actually a gluten and dairy-free version. I just made a regular muffin for the kids, but I'm making this one for myself for a snack for the week. I can have both gluten and dairy. I have to have them in moderation, and just recently we went off for a few days and I had some food I don't normally have, and that flared me just a little bit. I'm feeling some inflammation in my body, so I am omitting them from my diet for a little while, just until that clears up. Honestly, you wouldn't even know that these muffins are gluten and dairy-free. I think there's a lot of gluten-free recipes out there that are totally subpar, which is unfortunate for those who can't have gluten, but this one is really good. I just used Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 gluten-free flour, and I used some organic oat milk. That's my preferred dairy alternative. When making muffins, I like to make bakery-style muffins, like the ones with the big domed tops. How I achieve that is I allow my batter, once all combined, to rest for like 15 to 20 minutes. It starts to puff up a bit, and I fill mine all the way to the top of the liners. I'm also very careful not to deflate the batter once I transfer it to the pans. I bake them at a high temp for 5 minutes, and then I turn the temp down to bake for the remainder of the time, and you achieve these beautiful domed muffins. Those mini loaf pans only took a fraction of the time of that Pullman loaf pan, so that's still in the oven. While we wait on that, I'm going to work on prepping some meat for breakfast. This week is some bacon and some chicken sausage. I love having ready-to-go protein in the fridge. I find I just run best on a whole lot of protein. After going carnivore, that really just changed my view on eating and how I need to feed my body, how my body responds to things, and just really listening to what it needs. And I have just found I need a protein-heavy diet, at least in this season of life and healing. So I always have a whole bunch of ready-to-go protein in the fridge. Does anyone else really dislike the texture of the casings that come on sausages? I really don't like them, so I will forever remove them. I much prefer cooking all of the meat in a cast iron. I think it just gives a superior end result. But for the sake of time, everything went in the oven today, so I didn't have to do any of that work. Everything except for this steak. And no, I did not cook it in a cast iron skillet because all of my cast iron skillets were actually dirty. So that's some of the reason things were baked as well. And I was just looking to accomplish things quickly. So I cooked up a ribeye steak here for Matt's breakfast this week. I like to just cook it in butter with some Montreal steak seasoning. I got it a little bit more well done than I had intended it to, but things got away from me, and it's still nice and juicy and perfectly yummy. See, look at the rise on that dome. That's a good muffin right there. don't mind the clutter on the countertops there in the background. We live here, and I use my kitchen pretty hard on the daily. For my husband Matt's breakfast this week, I'm making him some quiche. It's a crustless quiche. I know some people will say that's frittata. It's not actually frittata. A quiche filling is more of a custard. It has a much higher amount of dairy than a frittata would. And a lot of times frittata is made in like a skillet. Sometimes I will use a crust, but this is just a quick way to make breakfast without the hassle of making a homemade crust. And honestly, I think we prefer it without the crust. Quiche is one of my favorite ways to use up any leftovers from the previous week, some leftover meat or veggies, some cheese that needs to get used. And right now we have so many eggs. So if you watched one of my previous videos about the whole chicken ordeal, where we had an intruder come and harm our chickens, the ones that were left were quite traumatized. They stopped laying for a good 2 weeks. So I ended up buying some from a local farm, and then they started to pick up laying again, and somehow I just ended up with a whole lot of eggs. So this is a great way to use up eggs if you have a whole bunch of them. So today I'm making a steak and cheddar cheese quiche. Matt loves steak and eggs. This was a really quick way to get that together. So I just did one steak. I did my quiche mixture, about a cup of cheese, and then I topped it all off with some chives from the garden, and it just goes into the oven, and his breakfast is good to go for the week. He'll probably have it with some toast. Another part of breakfast for the kids and I is some cheesy scrambled eggs. I like to put them into a really piping hot skillet. So that way the bottom gets all golden, slightly brown, a little bit of crispiness. That might sound weird, but I love that part when eggs get that way. So I used to work at a bakery, and quiches were made on the daily. And there'd always be some spillage, some spillover of like the puffed up egg mixture that would get onto the pans. I remember my coworkers and I would always fight over who got that puffed up brown part of the quiche mixture, and I like bringing some of that into our cheesy scrambled eggs. The last thing I'm going to prep for the week is some lunch for myself. I have no problem making lunch for Matt and the kids. They always get priority, but there's a lot of times, if I'm being honest, I forget about myself because I just get busy. I think that's a mom thing. So by ensuring I have things in the fridge ready to go, all I have to do is heat it up and I can actually nourish myself, because if mom isn't nourished, it's really hard to continually nourish and pour into other people. So remember to feed yourself, and feed yourself well. So today I'm going to make some of my favorite coconut jasmine rice in the Instant Pot. Just some coconut milk, a little bit of water, some jasmine rice, and some salt on the rice setting for 5 minutes. Super quick and easy. To go with the coconut jasmine rice, I'm going to make some salmon fillets. I love salmon. I just can't always find it wild caught. So whenever I do find some at a decent price, I will grab some. So I am making one of my favorite glazes for salmon, and that is some maple syrup, brown sugar, and some paprika and chili powder, a little bit of salt. The last thing to go with my lunch is some veggies. Always making sure to get some good sources of vitamins and fiber into my diet from Whole Foods. So we're doing some asparagus and some zucchini today. The sad part is none of it is coming from my garden anymore. The zucchinis were decimated by the squash bugs, and I didn't plant anymore, so I had to grab some from the farmer's market, as well as the asparagus, which I'm sure was not grown locally because that's done here for the season. So I am going to chop this up and I'm going to fry it in some olive oil with some salt, pepper, and some onion powder. After the veggies have softened a bit, I'm going to add in some minced garlic and some coconut aminos. I was going for kind of like a hibachi style veggie side to go with my salmon and rice. Okay, my sweet friends, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in the Homestead kitchen for this kitchen restock and meal prep for the week. I hope it gave you a little bit of inspiration. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. Otherwise, I love hearing from you. Blessings on your week, friend. I will see you next time. Take care.